Okay, Melanie, can you hear me this time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good. Okay, so our new phenomenon question is how can people reduce damage related to erosion? And what I was saying earlier is I'm not asking my students who are virtual to do this experiment at home, because by the time you bought peat moss and perlite or vermiculite and potting soil and the stream table box and the different sizes of gravel and the cups and poke the holes in and all that, your experiment per person would be about $30 per household. And that's just going to cost too much money. So what I'm going to have you guys do is watch each one of the students do their challenge. Okay. And what I was doing earlier was going over with my students what they needed to bring from home in order for their groups to be able to do the experiment. Okay. Because they start the experiment tomorrow. All right. So for the most part, the next 3 days, I will start by explaining what their challenge is, what they're supposed to do, and safety precautions, and then they have to do the work. So you guys will be able to sit back and watch them work, okay? So the lessons will be a little bit different. So everybody, today we shift gears. Instead of reading about the Grand Canyon, we read about, no, these guys.
Oh, the Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers.
I have lots of stories like those.
We are not going to read about the Grand Canyon. We're going to read about the Wright brothers because they used a process to design something, to make a solution to a problem. And we're going to use their same process in our class. Okay? My students last year loved it. All right? Great. All right, so listen for how the Wright brothers use the engineering design process, which is a series of thoughts and actions. They used the process to design an airplane. We're going to use the engineering design process to design a solution to reduce damage related to erosion. So we're using the process for a different problem, but we're still using the process. They use the process too. They wanted a different solution, but we're using the same process they did about 100 years later. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give each person a bunch of sticky notes. All right. And I'll tell you what the point of the sticky notes is in a few minutes, as soon as I'm done passing these out. All right. And to make things more colorful, you're going to get more than one color. Cool? Don't write on them, don't draw them, don't fold them, don't turn them into origami. That's not the point.
How do you do that? Don't tell me.
Because you are hard-headed children.
No, they're not.
Class.
Yes.
Just how much are you wanting to do the experiment tomorrow?
A lot.
Okay, then please don't talk now.
Yes, ma'am.
Because who doesn't like multiple colors, right?
I love multiple colors.
get my friends at the first table 9 pieces or 8 pieces? 9?
8, 9.
Who has 8? I only 21 students in the third block.
I got 3.
Yes.
Somebody said they're gonna be in the classroom watching on Thursday.
I know, it's Melanie.
Where's the fluffy doll? Whose dog is that?
Not mine.
Right there, I'm not.
Oh, that's Bear. You know Paxton McClanahan in 5th grade?
Mhm.
His uncle has it now. That was ours. It's a Cookie's puppy.
I decorated my dad's house.
9.
I have an 8. What's the fucking room? To be honest, that kind of looks
Go ahead and separate them out, guys. There's a good possibility you're going to need more than the 9 I gave you.
Oh, that's
Stop talking, friends. Okay. So for my friends online, do you have Post-it notes? For my friends online, do you guys have Post-it notes?
I'm going to get them.
I have Post-it notes.
Okay. So if you have Post-it notes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages of the design process. What is it, Joanna? Okay, come here. Why are you wearing your backpack everywhere, Michaela? Take it off and stay a while. There you go.
I have Post-it notes.
Okay. Grab them. You're about to need it, and a pencil. Okay, so guys, I'm going to read parts of this book aloud to you. And when you hear parts that sound like they fit into defining the Wright brothers' problem, or the Wright brothers identifying the criteria and constraints. And let me see if I can find criteria and constraints. Criteria is what is needed. Requirements. Please stop drumming. And constraints is what is possible. And limitations. So when you hear me read something that has to do with requirements or what is needed, or when you hear me read something that has to do with what is possible, what the limitations are, then you're going to write down in your Post-it note those limitations or those requirements. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Everybody hear that?
Yes.
Okay. You see, I grabbed more Post-it notes because I know you're probably going to need more of them. But Logan, you're going to have to stop talking and pay attention, okay? And I just called out his name. That way everybody will pay attention instead of calling out every child's name. Got it? It's not just him that's talking.
I have 2 of them.
That's great. You're probably going to need more than 10. Probably going to need more than 12. More than likely, we're going to probably need 15. And some of you will need more than others. Okay? All right. So let me go ahead and start reading. So what are the Wright brothers known for doing?
For building the first ever airplane.
Building the first ever successful airplane. Other people had tried to build airplanes before, but they didn't successfully fly for more than a few seconds. Okay, so it tells me to start reading from chapter 5. Just like you guys read books next door in Miss Daniel's class that were very interesting about Hurricane Katrina, but Louisiana Sky, but it doesn't allow her time to let you read the whole book. You only read out parts of it, excerpts of it. Likewise, same thing here. We only read excerpts of it. Okay. If you want to buy the whole book, it's on Amazon. All right, chapter 5, that's happiness, page 42. Okay. For the next year, Wilbur and Orville read and talked about flying. Their first step toward building a flying machine was to build and design a glider. Okay. They first looked at the failed gliders of inventors who had tried before them. From their study, Wilbur and Orville decided that to build an aircraft, they had to solve 3 problems. Building an engine that would make the aircraft move forward, constructing a wing that would be able to lift the machine, controlling the machine once it was in the air. So, did I just read to you something that they decided what the requirements were?
Yes.
Okay, so you need to write that. Okay, let me share screen. Live image.
Can you say it again?
I'm going to share screen where you guys can see it. Again, I'm sharing screen. Wilbur and Orville decided that to build an aircraft, they had to solve 3 problems. Build an engine that would make the aircraft move forward, construct a wing that would be able to lift the machine, control the machine once it was in the air.
That's something you do need to worry about.
It is. So this is within the ask part. They're identifying the criteria, right?
What is that?
Criteria is what is needed. Criteria,
So is this
what
the
is needed.
problem?
This is the ask stage.
So we put ask about this?
No, just write that. Okay.
Controlling the machine once it's in there.
So you're going to write.
I think your screen is frozen, Miss Vandiver.
I'm holding it very still. See, look. Can you see it moving now?
No, ma'am.
Not. Okay. Share screen. Right. All right, is it moving now?
Yes, ma'am.
So what I wrote was this, those 3 things right there.
Oh, that's what I
Okay. So all those things are criteria. They defined what was needed. They had to solve these 3 problems. Those were the things that were needed according to them, right? Is that correct? Okay. So those were the problems. Those were the criteria. So I'm going to post that right there in my notebook next to criteria. Do you see that?
Yes.
That's what you need to do with yours.
I didn't finish writing.
Okay. And then let me keep reading right here. The Wrights felt that the engine was the easiest problem to solve. They had already built a small engine for their shop, and other people had been successful building engines of various sizes. So they decided to tackle that problem last. So right there, it says what is possible. They're saying they're going to tackle the engine last. So they're talking about their plan, aren't they? Actually, they're selecting a solution. So that is an imagine. If you look in your notebook, it has ask, it has imagine, improve, plan, create, and share. Does everybody see those big bubbles? So
Yes, ma'am.
it says underneath imagine, it says research, brainstorm solutions, and select a solution. That part where it says they decided to tackle that problem refers back to engine. So that is brainstorming a solution, selecting a solution. That's imagine. So I'm going to put build engine last as imagine. Okay. And just FYI, our post-it notes are going to be all over this page in a little bit. So good luck getting them creatively on this paper. They're going to be all kinds of sideways. Yes. And you get a grade for this today.
Are you going to get rid of
You're going to creatively put them on there. It might be better if we write on our post-it note where you intend for it to go. So on mine, I'm going to write imagine on this post-it note, and on this top one, I'm going to write ask. That way I can let my reader know where I intend for it to go. Does that make sense?
Well, do you want us to write the first one there?
See, look. See how I wrote that on there? Ask and imagine. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
See? Today's activity is kind of fun because it's so different, isn't it?
Yes. I know it just messing with colors. Yes, of course. It's sort of just like messing with colors.
It kind of is.
It's not what?
Messing with colors. Because I bet you've never done your assignments on post-it notes and stuck them in a notebook before.
I guess. Last year.
But not stick them in a notebook like this.
Stuck on the board. We just stuck them in.
On that poster.
Yeah.
That's why people over the summer are like, what do you need? Post-it notes. Just lots and lots of post-it notes.
I don't know how this is gonna fit now.
It just does. See how I turn my diagonal? You're going to keep on getting turned diagonal.
It's gonna get messed up.
That's why you just write on it.
Can I just do that?
Yep, that works. Okay. So does anybody want me to reread this second paragraph?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even get the second thing.
The Wrights felt that the engine was the easiest problem to solve. They had already built a small engine for their shop, and other people had been successful building engines of various sizes. So they decided to tackle that problem last. Guys, sometimes you might classify something in a different circle. You might give it a different title. You might not call it imagine. You might call it a solution, something else. You might call it a creation. No, you might call it create.
I mean, yeah, that could be it too.
Uh-huh.
I'm probably gonna put it in the
Miss Ward is loving my students from last year.
They
Miss
may
Ward.
be big.
They were.
Are those the exact same things?
No, the one that really drove us nuts isn't here this year.
Oh, is that why she's always going? Okay, that's scary.
All right, let's keep going, guys. Where does it say to keep going? To 47. All right, the Wrights looked at the wings Lilienthal and Chanute had already designed. They learned that a wing must be curved in a certain way so that as the air moves over the top of the wing, it creates lift. Lift is the upward force that opposes the pull of gravity to keep any flying machine in the air and off the ground. So let's see if that fits anything that we've had. Ask is identify criteria and constraint. So criteria is what's needed, requirements. Constraints is what is possible. What are the limitations? So imagine possible solutions. Are they looking at other people's designs? Does this talk about them looking at other people's designs?
Yeah.
Lilienthal and Chanute. So that falls under research, isn't it? Okay. So looked at the wings. They looked at the wings. You can either write these guys' names or others.
Do you want us to look
Designed.
like others look at the wings?
No, they looked at the wings that others designed. You can write Lilienthal and Chanute or just the others designed. They studied what worked.
Wait, what did you say again?
They studied what worked. Look, part of imagining is researching. Does this paragraph describe them researching?
Yes.
Okay, so write down how they were researching. Did they also look at birds? Look right here. As with birds, the shape of the wing has to be just right. The Wrights tried many different designs and shapes of their own. They made their own tiny models of wings out of steel. So guys, there's a lot of different things you can choose from that paragraph. I don't want to tell you exactly what to write because there's a lot of different things you could choose from that paragraph that tell you what they did. They studied what Lilienthal and Chanute made. They studied birds. They made their own models out of steel.
That would be create.
That would be create. That would also be imagine because they researched, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to copy that name down.
Lilienthal and Chanute.
What?
Lilienthal and Chanute.
But I also put imagine.
You could just write others. You could write others.
I want to be specific so they know who we're talking about.
Okay, well, we got to move fast because we got a lot to get through.
I put imagine and create.
Okay. Going to stick my Post-it note on here. My little notebook's getting kind of weird looking. All right. The problem of how to control the glider was the hardest to solve. Is that a criteria question?
Yes.
The problem of how to control the glider was the hardest to solve. So constraints is limitations, isn't it? And that's a limitation. The problem of how to control the glider was the hardest to solve. The problem of balance and control is the problem of flight itself. That's a constraint problem. That's a limitation. So if you wanted to write that as a limitation, go ahead. As the Wrights studied and experimented, they searched for an answer. How can a pilot turn a plane and control it as it moves through the air? The brothers' experience on bicycles proved very useful. To turn a bike, the rider has to move the handlebars to one side, but the rider also has to lean into the turn and keep balance while leaning. The Wrights felt that controlling a flying machine would be similar. One day in the bicycle shop, Wilbur chanced on a key part of the solution. He was holding a long, thin cardboard box that had contained a bicycle tire's inner tube. As he held the box by the ends, he twisted it. Suddenly, he realized he had the answer. Twist the wings. If they could make the wings of the glider twist slightly or warp, that might help the pilot control the turns. The Wrights solved all the problems they faced as they designed their gliders with experimentation. It was not work to the brothers, it was fun. Wilbur's best skill was coming up with new ideas. Orville's skill with building things helped make those ideas real. Together, they made a perfect team. So, did they select a solution? What solution did they select? There you go. Twist the wings to turn, if that's what you want to write. This is your engineering design challenge page that you're doing. Twist the wings to turn and control the glider. So this one is still imagine. Because that's selecting a solution. Covering up lots of other stuff. I'm going to bend it that way I can still see plan, okay? Glider. Yes. Okay. That, yes, because it's selecting a solution. Yes, it is looking a mess. Okay. Orville later remembered how they felt during those early days of discovery. Wilbur and I could hardly wait for morning to come to get at something that interested us. That's happiness. As the work on the glider progressed, the Wrights shared their ideas with their father. Though he was often away traveling for church, Milton continued to support his sons in their efforts. We are leaving soon, Wilbur wrote to his father, for experiments with a flying machine.
Are we having work today?
What's that?
Do you have any work to do in this class?
Yes, you're putting your notes that we're coming up with, things that describe the engineering design process on your Post-it notes. See, look. Here's my notebook, okay? They looked at the wings, others design, they studied what works. That has to do with, imagine. Twist the wings to turn and control the glider, imagine. Build engine last, imagine. Build an engine that would make the aircraft move forward. Construct a wing that would be able to lift the machine. Control the machine once it was in the air. That has to do with the ask step of the engineering design process. So all the students are doing this in their own notebooks, and they're coming up with different things as I read the book. Everybody's doing their own version of this.
Do we have to use our science book to put them in there?
What's that?
Do we have to put our science book to put them in there?
Yes, everybody should have their science book. That was given out in that.
Oh, do we have to put the notes in there? Do we have to put the notes in there?
Putting the Post-it notes in there, just like I did. And this is on page 45 in your science logbook. So far we've found elements of the ask and imagine steps. The plan step has to do with gathering materials and generating a detailed design. Create has to do with building a prototype, testing and evaluating it. Improve has to do with going back and redesigning things. And sharing has to do with receiving feedback. Okay, guys? So those are the other steps we're listening for as I read, okay? All right.
Miss Van Dyke,
Yes.
what was the yellow sticky note?
Can you see all the sticky notes? Okay, so mine. The kids have different ones because I haven't written all of them down. They're pulling out different information as I'm going through. But what I have is they looked at the wings others designed. They studied what works. That was an imagine one because that had to do with selecting a solution. Twist the wings to turn and control the glider. That's an imagine step. Build an engine that would build the engine last. That was brainstorming a solution. Building an engine that would make the aircraft move forward, constructing a wing that would be able to lift the machine, and controlling the machine once it was in the air. That was identifying criteria and constraints, which is an ask part. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to keep going through the pages as the teacher book tells me to go through. Okay, that's how I know which pages to read. Okay, for everybody, continuing with the pages, we are soon leaving, Wilbur wrote to his father, for experiments with a flying machine. It is my belief that flight is possible. I think there's a slight possibility of achieving fame and fortune from it. So did the Wright brothers get famous from their flying machine?
Yeah.
Yes. 48. Off to Kitty Hawk. When their first glider was ready, the Wrights looked for a place to try it out. They needed steady wind to help the glider stay aloft. They wanted a place with sand or a beach so that they could have soft landings. Why wouldn't they want to fly over concrete?
Because they could have gotten hurt.
They could have been hurt when it crashed, right? They also wanted a place where few people could watch their experiments. And beaches tend to be what?
Crowded.
Now they are, but back then it wasn't crowded. But what else do we know about beaches? Look at that picture. They're sandy, yes, but look at their coats and the grass. They're windy, and the wind would do what for their glider? It would make it fly better, wouldn't it? And they needed the wind. Okay, so the fact that they chose the beach tells you they were doing what? Were they planning? They were planning. They chose the place. They carefully chose a place to test their glider. And what was that place?
The beach.
The beach.
I mean, that's a good spot, but now no.
Right.
I never knew
Right.
they used to not be crowded. Because if you go to any beach now, like,
Yeah, now it's crowded. Okay, so this is going to go beside the plan step. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep reading page 48. Oh, it says 54 through 61. So let me skip to page 54. Carefully chose a place, the beach, to test it. The glider. Even with all the difficulties, Orville found things to like about this strange new place. In a letter to Catherine, he wrote, This is a great country for fishing and hunting. The woods are filled with wild game. They say a few bears are prowling about. The Wright stayed in Kitty Hawk for weeks at a time during each of the next 3 winters. They tested their gliders over and over. So why are they testing them so many times? To make sure it's perfect, because what are they doing? They are making what? Are they doing the same? Are they keeping the glider the same every time they fly it? No, they're not. What are they doing to it? They're making it better by doing what to it between every flight?
They're improving it.
They keep on making changes to improve it. Okay, so by making changes, they built a prototype, right? So they created it. So they built a prototype. You see that in the picture, right? Built their prototype. So that's create, because that's what they're testing. Prototype, that's their first one, okay? And they're testing it and evaluating it, right? And are testing it over and over again. How many winters did it say did they do that?
I don't know.
They tested their gliders over and over for 3 winters. That means how many years? 3 years. So they tested it for 3 years. So that's a lot of testing, isn't it? Tested and evaluated it for 3 years. That means they were making improvements all along, weren't they?
Yes. That means improve.
So that means improve, yes. Okay, so I made one here that says made improvements for 3 years. One here that said built a prototype, and I said are testing it, but tested it for 3 years. Carefully chose a place, the beach, to test the glider. Okay.
Wait, how many did that use?
Well, this one page was 2 because they built the prototype. We see that in the picture. And they tested it for 3 years. Then that was create. Then the fact that they were testing it for 3 years meant that they were redesigning it in between all those tests. So they were improving it for 3 years also. If something broke, they simply found a way to fix it themselves. The gliders were made from wood and cloth. The parts were held together with wire and a few metal hooks or brackets. There was no motor yet. The brothers were still trying to solve the problem of control. Most of these gliders had wings that were about 20 or 30 feet across. The brothers took turns lying face down on the gliders.
Which one was this one?
Which one? Which one? I just made 2. Which one? What is it? What does it say on it? What does the Post-it note say? I can't help you if you don't tell me what's on it. Tested it is going to be where it says test and evaluate. Let's create. And then if it's made improvements, that goes under improve, redesign. The brothers took turns lying face down on the gliders. With help from Bill Tate and other local men, they pulled the gliders into the air by running down the slope of a sand dune. When the runners let go, the pilot took over. Some flights lasted half a minute or so, but most lasted just a few seconds. With each flight, or even with each hard landing, the Wrights learned something new. They were becoming experts in how things fly. So they were continually redesigning, correct? So let's write on here on improve, continually redesigning. Becoming experts in how things fly. So what does that go under? Where does redesign fall?
Improve.
Improve.
Because you already said improve.
Right.
So improve.
Yes, that goes under improve.
How do you spell redesign?
It's right there above your improve. If anybody needs more paper, I have more paper over here. I have stacks of it. After their glider test in 1901, Wilbur gave a speech to a group of engineers in Chicago. He described the things he and Orville had learned. It was the first time the Wright brothers' work was made public. Orville relied on his brother to be the voice of their mission, as he was terribly afraid of public speaking. In 1902, the Wrights returned to Kitty Hawk with yet another glider design. So let me pause. Did they just share what they had been doing?
No. Oh, yes. Yes.
Did they go and make a speech to other people about what they did?
Yes.
Okay, is that one of the steps of the engineering process?
Yes, that's true.
It is. So let's write that with share, okay? So 1901. Wilbur gave a speech to engineers in Chicago. And that's going to go and share. You used up all mine? Okay, you want another?
I don't know if I can fit any more. I can. Good line.
10 is our minimum to get off 10 points. So.
Should go like this.
It's worth 10 points, so
You need at least 10.
you need 10. No.
And
I know most of my friends had 10. What is it?
Like, what are the things we design over and over again?
They're going to keep on redesigning, I can tell you that. If you need more, come to me. If you
I
need,
forgot what it's called.
Baby, you should be listening, not talking straight from me. If you need more, come to me. You see, I have Post-it note pads on here. In 1902, the Wrights returned to Kitty Hawk with yet another glider design. They used the lessons they had learned from earlier flights to make this version even better. They had high hopes, but the first several tests did not go well. The glider often spun in a circle instead of flying straight. One night, as Orville sat in his bunk, listening to the howling winds outside, he had an idea. What if the tail of the glider moved along with the wings? That might prevent the spinning. In the morning, he showed Wilbur his plan, and they tried it. It worked. Once again, the brothers had worked together, talking through ideas to solve a problem. So was that once again sharing?
Yes.
It was. So the brothers talked through their plans. To make the tail move with the wings.
Folding it kind of gives it more space. Here again.
In 1902, the glider was soon soaring across the dunes. On October 23rd, Orville set a new world record for the longest glider flight. In 26 seconds, he flew more than 622 feet. They were sure they could now make a powered airplane. Tired but excited, they headed back to Dayton. Okay. So, looking at what the brothers did, that's all the reading out of here we're doing. Okay.
Thank you.
While we're not solving the solution of making an airplane, we are having to come up, or you guys are coming up with a solution. You're having to design something in your group, not an airplane, but you're having to come up with something, design something, and then redesign it and redesign it and redesign it until it solves the problem. Okay, does that make sense?
I folded mine so you can open it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Do you like my splash of color in my notebook?
Uh-huh. What problems do the Wright brothers want to solve?
Fan over?
Yes.
I didn't get the full sticky notes.
You didn't get what?
I didn't get the full sticky notes.
You didn't get 4?
I'm talking about what was the green sticky note, the blue, and the last green sticky note.
Well, you didn't have to copy and write the same ones what I did. What I was wanting you to do was identify parts of the engineering design process. And to get the full 10 points, I was wanting you to identify 10 parts or 10 different times that in that book, the brothers used parts of the engineering design process. Okay?
And talking about,
Guys, please stop moving the desks around. Okay, it's hard enough for me to hear my virtual friends. Having that makes it even harder. What is it, Michaela? You're gonna have to speak up. Okay. All right.
I'm talking about the what they were part of.
What they were part of. Which page do you want me to go back and reread?
I don't want you to reread, but I'm talking about like the ask, create, plan.
Okay. So if you look in your notebook, it tells you a little bit about what ask and create and all that is. Let me go back in here. Criteria means what's needed. Requirements. So Criteria before coming to 4th grade is understanding 3rd grade math, understanding how to read, that kind of thing. Constraints are what is possible and what are limitations. Okay, so that all goes into ask. Then plan is gathering your materials and generating detailed design. So some students brought their materials for tomorrow's lab because they're planning for tomorrow's lab. Make sense? Creating is building a prototype. So tomorrow students will be creating their prototypes for the lab. And then we'll test and evaluate their lab design if we have time tomorrow. If not, it'll be Thursday. Share. We'll come back together probably Thursday and share with the class the other 2, because there'll be 3 groups per class that does the lab. So we'll share with the other groups what worked and what didn't. So that's share. Improve is to go back and keep on redesigning whatever it is that they're designing. Okay. I know you're wanting me to just straight up read these out to you, but I'm wanting students to pull out of the text for themselves the parts of the design process. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Like, so, kind of like,
You didn't have to write all the same words. That's what I'm saying. I want students to identify for themselves.
I would rather talk through the way to fix the glider.
So what problems did the Wright brothers want to solve?
They want to make the glider perfect.
They want to make something that flies, right? What problems did they know they had to solve first?
Let's see. Build an engine that would make the aircraft.
Make the wings that look at the aircraft.
Uh-huh.
And
Being able to steer
crafting a wing that would be
Okay.
able to lift the
Okay.
machine.
How did they imagine possible solutions to the aircraft problems? So tell me about some of the research they did. Give me one thing, Jordan, then I'm going to Allie.
The wing, they researched the Wrights looked at the wings. I can't say the name.
Yes, 2 researchers. What else did they do, Allie?
They made like models of like wings.
They made models of wings out of steel. Yes, yes. What else did they do? Michaela?
They also looked at birds to see how they fly.
They looked at how birds fly. What else did they do?
They looked at how the plane's wings were shaped.
Okay. What else did they do? What did it say about the cardboard box? What did it say about twisting the cardboard box?
Twist the wing plane. Twist the wing.
Twist it like twisting the cardboard box, right?
It's like
And they-
twist the wings to turn and control, to help control the glider.
Uh-huh. And they also thought about steering a bicycle too, right? Okay. How did they plan their design?
They planned.
Carefully choose a place that will clean the beach to test the glider. They went to the beach to test the glider.
Here's something that I don't know if they actually had us look at the drawing, but here is a sketch of one of their designs.
Ooh, should we write a sketch?
No, it's just showing that they sketched out their drawings. They had prototypes where they did drawings and then they wrote it in words too. Kind of like we've been doing drawings and then adding words to it also, right? Okay. So they made illustrations and wrote notes with it. What were the gliders made out of?
Still.
No. Anybody online recall what they said the gliders are made out of?
Chain?
No.
Wood?
What was it? Wire was one of the components. Anybody online remember any more of it?
Maybe wood?
Wood, wire. There were two other things.
Chain?
Cloth.
Copper box?
Wood, cloth, wires.
String.
Not quite string. Wood, cloth, wires, and
Rope?
no, the wires had to attach to something. What do they attach to? Nobody recalls? Hooks. Okay. How did they test their gliders?
They tested their gliders. They tested the gliders. I don't know where it is. How did they test their gliders?
They laid down.
They laid down across it when they would fly them. What else do you remember?
They tested it for 3 years.
They tested it for 3 years. Where did they test it? Over
On the beach.
on the beach, on the sand. So if it crashed, it wouldn't tear it up as much.
Yeah.
What would happen if it broke?
They would have to redesign it.
They would fix it and try again, right? Most of the time, would it fly very long?
No.
What would it do?
Couple seconds.
It would fly for a few seconds. But what did they think about it? Every time, even if it flew for just a few seconds, they knew that they did what?
Did something wrong.
No.
They did a good job of one thing.
They knew that they learned more about flying every time.
Yeah.
It wasn't a loss because they were learning more and more about flying. Yes, Michaela.
It's kind of like in Clue, in the board game Clue, where you learn more when people tell you the mistakes you made. The more you learn from your mistakes.
Okay. They liked the beach because the sand was soft, but what was another thing that I showed you in the picture? What else is a beach?
Windy.
Windy. So they tested the gliders in a place with steady wind. How did they improve their glider designs?
They retried. Well,
They kept testing them and
testing them for 3 years. Over 3 years.
yes, but they would make them better. How?
Thinking about it.
How do they know how to improve them?
Because they learned, because by every mistake they made, they learned to use some parts and disclude some other parts.
Perfect. Good job. So one glider kept flying in circles. What did they do about that?
They twisted it.
What did they do about the glider that flew in
They
circles?
fixed the tail.
They made the tail do what?
They made the tail turn. It's something with the wings.
Was it twisted?
What did it do with the wings?
Twisted? I do it.
What did the tail do with the wings?
It turned.
It turned with the wings. How did the Wright brothers share their ideas?
They gave a speech.
Gave a speech in Chicago. What else did they do?
They talked about their plans.
They talked about their plans with each other. Did they also write letters to their father?
Yeah.
Yes, they did. Okay. Did the design process go from one part to the next and to the next and not return back? Was it just a linear process or did it keep going back and forth?
It kept going back and
It
forth.
did. It kept having to return back to earlier steps. Okay. So tomorrow and the next day and the next day, when you think you have your thing done, when you think you have your landslide proof design done, and we test it, you're like, we're done. And it gets tested. Are you actually finished?
No.
Why not?
Because you have to test it and test it.
Test it, but
Keep
You're-
trying.
you're going to try again and you're going to improve it. Okay. Nobody ever gives up after one try.
No, that's horrible.
You get things better by redoing it, by by redesigning it and retrying, okay?
Like if you don't dig on like something in science.
So the way PhD wants you to think about it is the engineering design process is more like a web than a circular or linear process. That picture up there, it looks really complex because nothing is a straight line. It doesn't go from one step to the next and then it's done. It's one step to the next and then the next, and then it goes back to the previous step, and then it goes back again to the other step. They keep circling
Are we
around.
gonna have to draw that?
Okay, because see here, this is what it actually looks like. Okay. You see all of these steps can go backwards. It's not like you've done one step, so you go to the next.
Nope.
It's not like stair steps that we go down, up and down to go to the gym or whatever. It's not like that, okay? Does that make sense? So do you understand why we did this today before we do the engineering challenge tomorrow?
Yes.
Even though it has nothing to do with landslides, which is what we're doing tomorrow, it taught us about these two guys who had to keep working so hard. And the parts that we skipped, guys, these two men had to go to a cold beach for 3 years and sleep in tents on cots. You know what a cot is?
Yes.
So it's 4 metal poles with a piece of cloth hanging down kind of under it. It's not comfortable at all.
That's what we have to do.
Please stop playing with pencil sharpener. Okay? And they were away from their wives. They were away from all their family and children for 3 years in the winter, sleeping on a beach where it's windy and cold. And it rained and rained and rained on these guys. But that was the optimal weather for flying.
That never stopped them.
That didn't stop them. That made them more determined to get it done.
The more you do it, the more you learn about it.
There were no grocery stores. There were no restaurants. They had to go out and shoot their own food and grow their own food. It was hard out there for them to do this.
It sounds fun.
Okay? Point is, they were determined to get their task done.
How old were they when this happened?
30s.
30? Wait, how long did they know that?
All right? So let's finish this up, okay?
Now what do you want us to do?
How did the Wright brothers use the engineering design process to solve a problem? How did they use the engineering design process, that ask, improve, imagine, plan, create, share? How did they use that process to solve a problem? How did they use it? They were very organized.
Yeah.
Guys before them were not. And so guys before them could not solve the problem of making a flying machine. How did these guys make it happen?
They were organized.
Yes. How did
They
they use
did
the engineering design process? They used research, which is part of the process. What else?
Birds. Looked at other people's like.
So they learned from other people. What else?
Made prototypes.
They made prototypes.
Looked at birds and see how they work.
Did they figure out what problem they
Yes.
needed to solve?
Yes.
They looked at the problem like scientists, didn't they? Did they try hard and not give up? Did they try just one solution?
No.
They tried a lot of different solutions,
Like
didn't they?
about.
How did they work as a team?
How did they work as a team? They planned and talked to each other.
They did.
They went everywhere.
Did the book point out that one of them was the one that came up with the ideas and the other one was good at building them? Yes. And then they were good at talking to each other, right?
Because they were brothers.
They were. Like I said, tomorrow, thanks to COVID restrictions, it's going to have to be one person's hand is in that bucket doing the work. You're not appointing yourselves. One person will have their hand in the bucket, and the other people will have to tell them what they're wanting them to do. We have to be polite because you get a lab grade for this. Everybody gets a lab grade. If you're rude, you will be sat down not to do the lab and you will get a 0. And I'm big on politeness, kindness. And if you refuse to work, you will get a 0. You get rude enough, I'll kick you out of the lab. And I've had plenty of people kicked out of my lab before for being rude. And my other teachers will back me up in a heartbeat for it. So will administration. Because when Vanderbilt kicks you out of the lab, you've really messed up. because you know me, I'm very laid back. I'm very forgiving. When you've made me that mad, you've messed up. But you don't disrespect your peers. You don't disrespect me either, but you really don't disrespect your peers. Okay? But tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, we don't sling mud. We don't get mud on each other. You guys saw me all those days last week. I didn't get any mud on me. Michaela, sit down, stop drawing. I didn't get any mud on me. We can get through these next days without getting mud on us. And I'm so glad that big bag of dirt is gone. I'm glad that part's gone. And after Friday, I can just dump all the dirt out of here. We will in about a month be doing more stuff with more dirt, but it'll be fresh dirt. It won't be just dirt. So I'm glad we've gotten through these dirt activities in 2 weeks. Yay! All right, leave your notebooks open to that page. I will walk around and grade them. More than likely, I will take the Post-it notes off after I grade them. Since I only gave you guys 9 Post-it notes to begin with, I'll probably grade it out of 9 and just make it out of 10. Does that make sense? If you have 9, I'll give you a 10 out of 10 kind of thing. All right. For sake of it not tearing up your next page, more than likely, I'll go ahead and take off the Post-it notes and toss it, depending on my time, because I've got an IEP in 1 minute. It's a meeting, a legal meeting.
Does that mean they're gonna get graded too?
Yeah, they get graded. I've already had one person submit theirs. Your work.
No, I'm talking about like tomorrow.
What?
You said everybody's getting graded.
Yes.
Even them?
You talking about the virtuals? Yeah, one person already submitted theirs.
I think she's talking about parts of the third.
Oh, no, they'll get eased. All right, guys, I have to go to an IEP, so I've got to end the meeting, okay?
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.